welcome to Mending Masculinity. As always, I will be here with you, Andrew Skull, my friend Joe. A little bit about us, just to start out. I think I want to introduce ourselves to you, but I want to do it in a unique way for the listener. I think it would be best served if we introduce each other. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about my guy, Joe, just so that you understand that he's not just some random guy on a podcast. Joe, to me, is the perfect picture of a transformed man. When you meet people in your life, there's always issues and different things that you'll find, but to be completely honest, full transparency, Joe at one point in time was my least favorite person in the entire world. Is that not true?
That's true.
Yeah, he was my least favorite person in the entire world. I made a statement about Joe, guaranteeing by my own word and integrity his failure in life. And through the years of what has been to me just sheer tyranny of will, just a person determined, he has transformed himself from my least favorite person in the world to my favorite person in the world outside of my wife and children. And it's not something you could do without some exceptional qualities when it comes to teachability, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to just a willingness to achieve success, to pursue success. I've seen him step into fields that he had absolutely no knowledge of repeatedly, climb to the top of those fields, and then be able to move around and step into new fields that aren't even related to those fields and still have success. And this is a pattern that's repeated itself over and over and over again. And at some point, you just have to look at something and realize that it's not a fluke. It's not a fluke that the guy's successful. He's successful because he is possibly the best relationship builder that I've ever met. And in those relationships, he pours himself into them and guarantees their success by his own intentionality. There's not a lot of people that'll do that kind of thing. And I've just seen it pay dividends over and over. It's still paying dividends today. And who knows, 5, 10, 15 years from now, the success that will be piled on top of the success you're already having. And this is a guy that you want to hear from. This is a guy that if you're someone who's struggling with your self-discipline, if you're somebody who's struggling with trying to find who you are, trying to find where you fit in the world, if you're on a 0 to hero journey and you're feeling like you're in that 0 spot and there is no hope to climb the mountain, this is the guy you want to hear from. This is the guy that I've witnessed do it. This is a guy that I could comfortably say has reached the pinnacle of the mountain, but he would say he's still near the bottom of the mountain. And that's what you got to love about him, is that he's continually climbing. He has transformed all of his habits, all of the patterns in his life that are in a negative direction or have been in a negative direction. He either has changed or is actively changing. He's a person not satisfied with his failures, faults, flaws, and he's constantly working on himself while simultaneously, and this is the caveat there, not riding himself in a negative way to where he hates who he is. And that is a tricky line to balance. But that for you is Joe Reasonover, a husband, a father, a friend, and in my opinion, somebody that you should absolutely strive to be like.
Yeah, those are some really kind words. Probably too many kind words.
Yeah, it's always awkward.
Yeah, it is awkward.
Yeah,
it is
I
awkward.
like to hear that about yourself.
No. I was like, all right. At first, I was like, this is cool. And I was like, okay, that's enough. Yeah, you shut
They
up.
need to know. They need to know.
Yeah, I really think Andrew is an excellent communicator and can speak very eloquently. And he's a much better communicator than I am. I believe that Andrew is possibly one of the greatest men I've ever met, and I judge people very harshly. I'm the type of guy within the first 3 minutes of meeting you, I could point out 10 flaws in your life. And with Andrew, man, I can confidently say he is one of the greatest men I've ever met. And we take that so lightly these days, but something about Andrew is that he is not going to lord that over you. Andrew is very humble And it's actually a running joke around our friends about how humble Andrew is, because he's the best at every sport we ever play. And when you ask him, like, hey man, are you, like, when random people ask, are you good at basketball? He's like, I'm okay. And I'm like, Andrew, kill everybody at basketball. I've never seen somebody that could one-on-one beat Andrew in basketball. And so, man, he's super humble, great father. And if I were to go to start listing his accomplishments, director of a multi-million-dollar company, incredible fighter, father of the year. If I just listed all the accomplishments, it would take us a long time. But I think it would be suffice to just tell you that Andrew is the kind of guy that you would want one of your daughters to marry. Andrew is the kind of guy that you would say, hey, if we're in a really bad situation, I want this guy by my side. He's the kind of guy that would do anything for you and could. In fact, a lot of people say, like, oh man, I'll do anything for you. I believe Andrew could do anything for you. And so that's what I think about Andrew Skull.
Appreciate that, man.
No problem.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So as you can tell, man, the friendship is real, but it's not based on anything superficial. Everything in the relationship between Joe and I has been scratched, clawed, and worked for. It's not a friendship based on superficial things. There was no mutual need that either of us had when we met each other that was, found, or really, we weren't trying to get away from our spouses or relationships, and there was no escape with one another. It was just two men individually pursuing a greater version of themselves, and you attract your own.
Yeah.
You attract your kind. That to me. How do you feel about the statement? You can tell where someone's headed by the five people closest to us.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. Yeah, and I think about that when I'm hanging out with people. Like, do I want to be like this person? And I think about you've been walking this out longer than I have. I remember times where you would say, like, things like, I'm glad I finally found somebody or built somebody up to walk this way.
Yeah.
I mean, because how long did you have to do it alone?
Oh my goodness, very long time.
Yeah.
Very long time.
And how terrible is that?
Yeah. The reality is you can invest in people, but it's very unlikely that people are going to continue on a path of discipline. And I hate that because and you don't. I think that's what makes it so difficult to build these relationships, is that you know how long you're having to pour into them, and the odds of it ever having any kind of return are almost zero.
Yeah.
Almost zero.
Yeah.
And so I have mentored many people over the years through friendships.
Yeah.
I think that in every relationship you do a little bit of both.
Right.
Somebody usually establishes themselves as more the mentor and the other the mentee, but it's still some give and take that happens.
Yeah, definitely.
But the odds of your mentorship and all of your pouring into people ever returning back to you is so odd, because one, you start with, there's such a deficit to start with. So the odds of them ever catching you or getting to a point where they could give you valuable feedback, very, very slim.
Right.
Because there's some years that they're going to have to put behind that walk before their feedback has any sort of merit. It'd be like someone having a baby and the very next day teaching a seminar on parenthood.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is your first day of fatherhood.
Right.
Slow down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm actually writing a book right now called The Disciplined Dad.
Nice.
And one of the biggest challenges for me in writing this is that I feel unqualified to offer any advice because my children are still so young.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of the caveat of the book, is that, hey, I know I haven't experienced everything in life yet.
Right.
This is an up till now.
Right.
And this is also general principle. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Which does apply throughout ages. And so we're excited about this podcast, Men in Masculinity. The name, we spent some time on the name. How long do you think it took us to come up with this name?
30 minutes.
Yeah. We're talking 30 minutes of just sitting at a
Just
table,
sitting,
no phones, no anything, staring at each other, saying,
just throwing names, words.
Yeah. We wanted it to be perfect, and we wanted you to tell you why we came up with the name that we did. First of all, masculinity. Will you call that a strong or a weak word?
Yeah, it's a strong word.
It's a very strong word.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think that people respond to the word masculinity? Good, bad, ugly. What's
I think I think that in society today, there's like a negative connotation to masculinity. You know, we hear about toxic masculinity, and I think that gives men a bad rep. You know, and so what we want to do is we want to take masculinity from its toxic cultural, you know, the way culture sees masculinity as toxic, and we want to make that understandable.
Yeah. Kind of reveal it for what it is, I guess.
Right.
What it was intended to be always.
Yeah.
Because everything was created with intention. I believe everything has a place in the world. Anything in excess can be bad.
Yep.
You know, but also anything in lack is also bad.
Right.
Or can be. And so trying to find a balance of what masculinity actually is a big thing, and mending it. That's what we're talking about. Is we're trying to not change it. We're not trying to even redefine it.
Right.
I think redefining is bad. We're trying to restore it to its original purpose, its original intent. And so that's kind of how we came up with the name. And in the flow of our show is typically going to follow a pretty stereotypical pattern, provided, you know, when we have guests on, it may change up a little bit. But for the most part, we're going to talk about issues within masculinity. We're going to talk about different leadership topics. May address some biblical questions, some health topics, and any other questions that people might ask. And so today's big question that I'd love to hear Joe's opinion on, our issue in masculinity for the day is it okay for men to have feelings?
That's a tough question. I believe that it is okay for men to have feelings, and that it is not okay to make decisions based on those feelings.
Explain.
Man, I have feelings all the time, you know, and I would also like to separate feelings from emotions, right? And so sometimes I feel like doing this, or I feel like doing that, and sometimes I don't feel like working out, you know, and I'm still going to work out, obviously, because I've made the decision to do that. And but sometimes I feel like giving my wife a gift, right? So if I was like, you know, I don't care about emotions or feelings, I would have never got my wife a gift, right?
Sure.
And but when I feel like getting my wife something or getting my child something, I do that. And I think that's separate from emotions. I think emotions are like happy, sad, angry. I don't know. I don't have a lot of them.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I think that one of the things that makes it difficult is that emotions tend to cloud the decision-making process. Your feelings, they cloud the decision-making process. And for you to be able to make truly unbiased decisions,
right,
you've got to be able to set your emotions aside.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to set away whatever you feel in that moment. You got to put it down.
Yeah.
And you got to look at something for what it is. For example, I'm just make a radical statement. Somebody you don't know comes up to your car asking for money. There's not a ton of feelings associated with it. Maybe some empathy, something like that. Same exact scenario. Somebody you know also begging, asking for money. Now you've got some additional feelings that are involved or in play. And so the decision, ultimately, you're dealing with the two instances of the exact same situation.
Right.
One of which you have feelings attached to it and one you don't. And so in order to make unbiased decisions, you've got to be able to learn to set those feelings aside and make the best decision for the person as a whole, which sometimes isn't the thing that's going to make you feel better. Because maybe giving to this person, you know, they might be in a lifestyle pattern or something like that, that giving to them might actually hurt them.
Right.
You know, and if your feelings are, I don't want them to not like me, I want them to know I care about them, all of these things, you might make a decision in that moment to enable them to continue down a dangerous path.
Yeah.
Now, that's not exclusively true across the board. I'm not saying don't ever give to people in need. We obviously spend a lot of our money giving to people and helping people and pulling people out of situations. Is something we believe in wholeheartedly. But there are responsible and irresponsible ways to do that. And feelings cloud that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Let me ask you a question, because this is, you know, we, Andrew and I, just for the viewers who don't know us, we are very open about what we think with other people, and we're always trying to help people and discipline and mentor people. This is something you have gotten a lot of pushback against, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
The pushback on the feelings things, and one of the sayings that I say a lot, I've even got a shirt that I made myself that says feelings have no substance.
Yeah.
And you have to understand what feelings are. We could go back and forth on definitions and arguments. When I define things, mind you, for the viewers or listeners, I'm defining things from my own personal perspective and experience, with some regard to what the world defines things as, but the world does change definitions. And so I'm not going to exclusively go with what other people tell me things are. But in my experience, a feeling is simply something that accompanies a decision.
Right.
It's just a wave of emotion that hits you after a decision. Now, this decision could have been made by you, could have been made by somebody else. You don't always get to decide when those feelings come along. Somebody might cut you off in traffic. That was their decision.
Yeah.
Now you've got to deal with the feelings that accompany it. But the reality is you can't do anything. There's no substance to those feelings. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, another decision has to be made for anything to happen, right? And so I can run this guy down, but my feelings didn't do it. There was a choice that followed that feeling.
Right.
And so I'm big on learning to really have full range of control over your emotions and feelings. I think that people use them as cop-outs too much.
Definitely.
I felt this way, I feel this way, and because of that, I did this. And it's like, you made a choice.
Yeah.
There was a moment in time where you had an opportunity to make a choice, a right or a wrong one.
Right.
You did experience whatever wave of emotion you experienced, but at the same time, you also had an opportunity to think through the repercussions of said action.
Yep.
And you either did that well or you didn't.
Yep.
And we can't blame how we felt on that.
Yeah, like a cop-out, like, he made me so mad I did this, or she did this so I did that. Like, that is a cop-out. You are in control of yourself, not the other person, not your emotions. You are in control.
Yeah, and I could tell you another thing that comes with that as far as pushback goes. People are used to being treated a certain way. This is a topic that you and I were discussing just the other day. People are used to how people treat them.
Yeah.
Right? There may be a person who's always just skated by. I know some guys in my life. Heck, I was one of the guys, to be honest, before I was disciplined, I was one of the guys that just got by with everything because I was kind of a smooth talker.
Right.
I was likable enough. I was also a jerk, but I was likable enough that people kind of let me get away with more than they should have let me get away with.
Right.
That's not a good thing. I was used to being treated a certain way. So at that point in my life, if someone would confront me and tell me that I was wrong or needed to change, I'm like, bro, write you right out of my life. I don't need that kind of negativity. And that's what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is that is a negative person. It's like, that's not a negative person. That's a person that sees me for what I am. And he's trying to put me on some course correction. And I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so the way you feel about things and about people, a lot of times makes you make bad calls and bad decisions on people. It makes you reject good counsel, good advice.
Definitely.
Like, I can't tell you how much good advice I rejected earlier in my life.
Because it didn't feel good.
Yeah, and not that maybe that doesn't even still happen, because I believe this growth journey will continue till the day that I'm no longer here. Yeah. And but right now, you always feel like you've reached the pinnacle of what you possess. Obviously I believe there's more, but I can't picture it.
Right.
I've not been there yet.
Yeah.
And so just as I'm learning and growing, a lot of times I see people that are used to maybe very empathetic people. Those are the people I have the most trouble with. Not because I don't like them, but they feel like I don't like them.
Let me ask, do you mean empathetic or sympathetic people?
Probably sympathetic.
Okay.
That's probably a better definition. That's a good correction.
Okay.
The reason being is because when someone's constantly feeling everything that everyone around them feels and puts themselves in those situations, it
has sympathy.
Yeah, it makes it very hard for them to function day to day. It's not that I don't love them and care about them. It's actually the opposite. I love you and care about you a lot. And I want you to be able to function to your fullest capacity. And this overwhelming sympathy that you feel over everything is hurting you.
Definitely.
It's crippling your ability to function at your best. And at your best, you are a force to be reckoned with in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, you're an amazing thing. And I just want to see you walk in all of that. Go ahead.
Do you think that most of those people that you encounter like that are female or male?
They tend to be female.
Yeah.
They tend to be
I would
female.
agree.
Not that it's exclusively female, but it would definitely be majority female, because I think that in the female circle is seen as an admirable trait.
Correct.
It's like, but there comes a point you cross a line.
Yeah.
There's a very clear distinction in line where it's like, okay, they've gone too far, and you become a person with a reputation
of being emotional.
Yeah, and always being hurt.
Definitely. A victim.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing either. And those are the people that I get a lot of pushback from, and it's numerous people. Mind you, I don't have a specific person in mind. I can think of 30 top of my head that have huge issues with me because of how I describe my I call it the war against feelings. It's not really that, but that's just it's kind of a joke now. That I hate feelings. I don't hate feelings. I have feelings all the time. I just don't let them make decisions for me.
Do you think there's a point there? So we were saying, obviously I would agree that too emotional is a bad thing.
Sure.
Would you say, in your opinion, that not enough emotion is also a problem?
I think completely unexpressed emotion can be a problem. I don't know that they're outside of maybe some extreme clinical cases.
Right, sure.
I think that there's probably not that many people that don't have emotions.
Sure.
I do think there are a lot of people that fail to express emotion.
Yeah.
I would put myself in that category.
Fail to express?
Yes, fail to express. Not don't have, fail to express. And because I fail to express, people receive that I don't have them. And so I could be very stone-faced in a situation where, kids are laughing and playing and running around, and, my wife's shooting a bow and arrow in the backyard, and everybody's having a good time, and we're at the church having a party or whatever.
And you're having a good time too.
Yeah, and everybody's laughing, but I'm in the corner just like staring,
But you're actually enjoying the time.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. I love watching my kids and my people enjoy each other's company.
Right.
And to be honest, a lot of times that's my time of self-reflection, being thankful, for me to God.
Right.
Being thankful to God that we're in a position where we can enjoy life like this, And so I'm not angry. I'm actually having one of the most emotional moments that I'll ever encounter.
Completely blank.
Yeah, completely blank. And I'm not big on physical touch.
I know.
It's nothing personal. It never has been.
Yeah.
But I'm not the guy that's gonna seek you out to hug you. It's nothing. It has nothing to do with you. It's just not really my thing. Also, I've been doing combat my whole life, so being submissive to my personal space is not something I'm a huge fan of.
Right.
And to other people who don't do that, and I'm not saying all fighters are this way. There are plenty of them that are fine with physical touch and all that and don't have any of these issues. But for me, there's a certain way that my mind operates. We're all a little different,
Right.
And my mind operates in a way where it really doesn't like to give up its personal space, because that to me makes me vulnerable.
Right.
And so, at all times I've got a gun on me, and I have years of combat training, and there are, spatial areas that I don't like people invading.
Right.
It's just that simple for me.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like you, but people take things different way. People take things personally. And it tends to be the people who err on my side of more stone-faced and stoic tend to get the more harsh review from the public,
right?
Because someone who's very huggy and bubbly and all of that. I mean, well, who doesn't like those people?
Right.
That's just kind of the view.
What's funny is that is one of the starkest difference between us. It's like, I'm like, hey, I'll give you a hug, I'll give you a kiss, whatever, I've kissed multiple dudes' cheeks. I'll do it in the Italian way, What?
Joe definitely is not someone who is afraid of physical touch.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
So what about as a man dealing with the emotions of like a spouse or family member or something like that? Where are you there?
So that is actually where I find myself. Okay, so whenever I heard like we don't have to care about our feelings, I was like, bet, I'm all in on that. I'm like, whatever, I'll just write off every feeling I've ever had, because that to me is the easiest way to do it. Before I came to the Lord and had like a revolution in my life, I didn't have feelings. I was I just did whatever felt good, to me. And so when I learned that we could just disregard our feelings, I was happy about that. And what I've started to realize through my wife is that there is some value in feelings, right? And so like let's take my son for example, right? He's crying. I know he's not like dead. I know he's not in trouble. I know he's not in danger. And I know I've taken care of his food, his shelter, I know he's warm. I know he's not cold. I know he's taken care of and protected. And so him crying to me, like, hey, bud, figure it out.
Yeah.
And Alexis is like, oh, poor baby, let me comfort you. And I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not that type of guy. Like, come here, poor little baby. I've literally sat with him just screaming. Sure. I'm not even trying to comfort him. He's just on my lap screaming. And I'm like, and Alexis is like, why aren't you doing something about it? And I'm like, because I really don't, like, of course I care that he's sad, right? Of course I want him to be happy. Mm. But, like, to me, he needs to figure it out. He's like 6 months old, so that's old enough.
Yeah.
To me.
Get a job,
Yeah, like, have you invested in your 401k today, you idiot?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I think we're even possibly bridging into something we'll probably have to get into later when you're discussing almost ingrained characteristics in our creation.
Yeah.
And I think that women definitely have a different set of ingrained characteristics than men do. That doesn't mean that there isn't some fluctuation between women and men. There are men that have more of a nurture.
Sure.
But most men I meet are more war.
Right.
And the flip side is also true. You'll meet some women that are,
or go get it.
Yeah. And then you'll meet some other ones that are very nurturing. The majority being very nurturing. And that's a good thing.
I do. Yeah. And so when I first got married, I tried to shut my wife's emotions down.
Yeah.
And one day I was just thinking, and maybe it was after we had an argument about emotions. I don't really remember, but I remember this thought process. I remember thinking, do I want her to be a man? Mm. Like, why didn't I just marry another man? I mean, like,
I know, I see what you're saying.
And so that is what switched for me, and I was like, okay, I want to nurture those emotions in a way that's healthy. Mm-hmm. And so if I keep trying to shut her down on emotions, her emotions are going to turn negative. Mm. And I want to nurture her positive emotions because she's going to express them regardless of what I do. And so what I've started doing and what I've seen is extremely successful is nurturing positive emotions.
Yeah. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Really good advice. I can say for myself as well that has been one of the more difficult things. I've been married like 8 years now, something like that. And in the beginning of a relationship, that's some of the more difficult things. I was on my own when we met. I hadn't had parents around for some time. I've been taking care of myself. I've been working, paying my own bills. A lot of these different things. And so I kind of had a system figured out for me.
Right.
And then I introduced somebody else who's in a different situation where she's just recently finished college. She's living with her family. She does some stuff on her own, but there's a lot done for her. She's not really having to pay her own bills and stuff like that for the most part.
Right.
And so just totally different situations. And then you come together and, the system that has worked for me for all this time isn't working for her.
Right.
And I don't understand that.
Yeah.
How could it not work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a perfect system.
Yeah.
I've not had any issue with it for all of these years.
It's been working.
And now you're sad.
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do with this? And so, that was a struggle for me at first too, because it was like, you shouldn't be sad.
Right.
You shouldn't be sad. This is a perfect system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I say system. Obviously, I don't look at marriage as just a system. I'm just, I'm oversimplifying for the sake of not taking all day.
Yeah.
But the reality is that to me is the most difficult part is learning how to deal with something that I don't myself experience a whole lot of, which is these overwhelming feelings that want to help guide and influence decisions.
Right.
And she has them.
Yeah.
She has feelings towards things, and that's okay. That's okay. There's a healthy way to express them. There are unhealthy ways to express them. My wife and I were having this conversation yesterday, totally unrelated to the podcast, but just we're constantly having these kind of conversations to increase our communication with each other. We review past situations without re-arguing them.
Yeah.
And you can do that.
Ooh,
You know what I mean?
what?
And it's fun, man, because you can both kind of see like areas where you could have done something a little different. And for me, I'm an information collector.
Right.
So the whole time I'm doing this, like, I'm not just rehabbing this conversation to have it. I'm storing information.
Little caveat here, not successful for me. I've not seen success in this. I'm glad you have.
Yeah. I think that you have to get to a certain point. At the point in marriage that you and Alexis are, duration-wise, I would say that y'all are probably further along than Courtney and I were at that point. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
But we've also, we hit some years of where it got dark. Tough. But once we got past that, the growth has been astronomical. Yeah. And so it's been really phenomenal. And so to be able to have those kind of conversations, and that's the conversation we were having was, about expressed feelings and unexpressed feelings and kind of how those things turn. And what I was telling her is at the root of it all, I'm speaking for the majority. Men want to be respected, and women want to be loved.
Yeah.
If you as a man can confront your wife with love, you can have a conversation.
Definitely.
And if she can confront you with respect, you can have a conversation. Yeah. But the minute you do either one of those things, absent those, you got a problem. You got a huge problem.
100% agree. Yeah, dude, one of the biggest things I've learned is how to confront things with love. Like, I can confront you and respect you at the same time. Easy. Because I know how, I want you to do that. And, but, dude, my wife will get defensive hard. If I just, I'm like, hey, why did you do that? And, to me, that's normal. Okay, let me explain to you why I did that. If you ask me why I did something, I'm like, this is why. And to her, it's like I'm attacking her. Yeah. And so I've had to learn how to ask questions softly.
Yes, and so I agree with your wife.
Yeah.
Why did you do that is a very abrasive form of communication.
Yeah.
It's too direct. Now there are times where you want to be that direct, and I have asked you many times questions just like that.
Right.
But my intention was to be direct and abrasive.
Right.
Because I wanted you to understand in that moment that there is a direct and abrasive consequence to whatever you decided to do. Yeah. And so, when you say something so direct like that, understand that you're also communicating that what happened is a result of your action and is majority your responsibility. Right. And so that can be a heavy thing to toss.
Toss around.
And that's the thing about communication, man. It is an art form. Yeah. It is far more than relaying information. Yeah. To its nth degree, it's art. Yeah. And you have to practice it, man. There are a million things to think about before you speak a sentence. Yeah. If you want to do it well, and that's why we see all of these really intelligent people go on talk shows with people with opposing views, and they just get railroaded because it's very hard to communicate at such a high level. Yeah. When you can't think of every possible repercussion, every possible response. Yeah. And so eventually you hit something that you didn't consider you might encounter. Yeah. And boy, on the spot, it's tough. It's tough to navigate.
It's why I've listened to Jordan Peterson talk to people that he is maybe less knowledgeable in an area on, but he communicates so well that it sounds better when he says it. Yeah. It's just like, I understand the information better because Jordan repeated what that guy said.
Sure. Sure. He's extremely articulate. He also simplifies, still uses very intelligent words, but he simplifies a lot of what he says. Yeah. So that it could be understood. Because that's the intention of communication, right? Right. So that you'll be understood. Yeah. And so a lot of people communicate to sound intelligent. That's not the purpose of communication. And if that's why you're doing it, you will fail. Yeah. And so, but yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree. He is very, very good at communicating. The other thing is when it comes to love, and this is something, because we're discussing marriage. Right. Love is not an emotion. Love is not a feeling.
For sure.
And so, while I am reserved with maybe how much I feel or express my feelings, love is not that. Yeah. Love is a choice. Yeah. It always has been. Yeah. It always will be. Yeah. It does not matter whether or not it is accompanied by an emotion. Love is a choice that you make. Definitely. If your kid walks around the corner in the morning and hits you in the face with a baseball bat, you're not going to feel warm and fuzzy. You still love your kid.
As you're spanking.
Yeah, but the feeling that is accompanying you is not one of bubbliness.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so we've got to get rid of that, fall in and out of love. Like, no, what you're feeling is dopamine.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are totally different things, and you're feeling a rush of emotion.
Right.
For anything unexplored is gonna present certain emotions and feelings and stuff like that. And so when things are new, they feel different. And so you've been married for 10 years, and then you start having a conversation with somebody you've never had a conversation with, and you start to feel it, and you're like, oh my God, maybe I'm falling out of love with my spouse and into love with this. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's not that at all.
Definitely not.
And so...
And you need to fix that.
Yeah.
You need to fix that.
Sure.
I was listening to this marriage guy, I guess he's a counselor or something. Anyways, he wrote a book. And in his book he says, whenever people come to me and say they've fallen out of love with their spouse, I said, do you sell your car when you run out of gas? No, you put more gas in it. You've fallen out of love with your spouse? Love her more. Put more love back into that relationship. If you've fallen out of love with your spouse, it's because you've stopped loving her.
Yeah.
You've stopped doing the things that that are conducive to loving her.
Yeah. And I've been in a place where we were struggling and having difficulty and stuff like that. And it was difficult to continue to choose to love. And so this is something that's going to be a staple of our podcast. It's just transparency.
Right.
Because the deal is that we try to act like everything's always been perfect, and we're not talking about real things and real issues and real conversations. Then we can't help anybody.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
Yeah, for sure.
The reality is I've been there and I get it, and it is hard, but you have to war for it.
Yeah.
You have to war for it.
It's a fight.
Yeah, and there are going to be times, man, where for a lot of people that you're losing that war.
Yeah.
You're absolutely losing that war. I'm telling you, look, grab your shovel, dig a trench,
Yeah.
go to war with it, man, because it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah.
And you're going to regret giving up on it if you do.
For
You're
sure.
going to look back, even if you're in a second marriage, feeling
Super happy.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
still going to regret the fact that you gave up and that you failed.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying every divorce is a failure. I realize that there are certain instances and circumstances where,
Sure.
it's just not an option. So please don't think that I'm being overly critical of everyone who's ever had a separation. I get that some of them can be justified. But for the ones that aren't,
Yeah, you know.
I don't have to convince you.
Yeah.
It
It is a fight though, man. There's some times where I have to bare knuckle,
Yeah.
just like white knuckle grip my willpower to contain, like if I'm upset about something, if she's really doing something that upsets me. Sometimes I just gotta knuckle down, like this is very upsetting to me and I really want to lash out. However, that's not appropriate, nor is it beneficial.
Yeah.
It'll make me feel good for what, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like I'll feel good for 5 seconds. I got him.
Yes.
And then I'll be like, now she's crying.
Yeah.
And it's like, was it worth it?
Yeah. It's fleeting.
Yeah.
It's fleeting.
It is.
Yeah. Well, do you have any more thoughts on this particular issue? Emotions, feelings, men, any of that?
No, I think we got covered it.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about it, man. Another question that comes up a lot. This is, this first episode we haven't really asked people a lot of questions, but what we have been is asked a lot of questions over the years.
Yeah.
And so, a question I get a lot of time because I've had the pleasure and the joy and the honor of being able to lead teams in a lot of different places over a lot of years now. I know that Joe's done some pretty extensive team leadership as well. One of the questions I get a lot is, what should your relationship look like with the subordinates, with the people that are serving under you? Do you have any particular thoughts about what that relationship should look like?
Yeah. This question is difficult for me.
Yeah.
Because of just like my general setting is to build relationships. And so when somebody asks, what is your relationship like with your subordinates? I'm like, well, why would that be different? I'm going to build a relationship with them just as much as I'm going to build a relationship with somebody else. Like, I want to build the strongest relationship I can, and I don't understand the arguments against it. I know there are. I just don't quite get them. Like, even if you have to fire somebody, like, you want to be as close to that person as possible. Like, hey man, I want to do everything I can for you. And I think it's laziness that people don't. I think bosses who don't want to build relationships with their subordinates are just lazy. Because like, they just want to say, oh, you're fired, like, get out. Like, they don't want to help them. They don't want to try to work through their problems. And I think that's pure laziness and terrible leadership.
You know, laziness was not one of the things I was thinking.
Really?
But I think that you're correct. I think
Yeah.
that was definitely a part at play. I would have said, I still will say, that I would think fear. I would think fear.
Yeah.
It's hard to fire a friend.
Yeah,
It's hard to fire a friend. You can, tagging back onto me, you can emotionlessly fire someone that you don't care about.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry man, it's not working out. See you later. And that's a very easy let go.
Yeah.
It's very different when you've spent,
Time.
3-4 months building a relationship with a person, and you know about their wife and their sick kid,
Right.
and all these different things that are happening. You're like, hey, look, buddy, I gotta let you go. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you know everything that's going on with me. How could you do this?
Right.
And it's like, you still need that strong relationship in that moment.
Yep.
And they need you to have that strong relationship in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need it more than anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's not all about you. Can
Right.
we just say that?
Yeah.
Can we just say that life is not about you?
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
your life is not about you.
Yeah.
You have a responsibility to yourself and to your family, but you are not the centerpiece of your story.
Right.
And if you are, then I do not envy the position you are in life. Not
Yeah.
a bit. Because that has been the change that has been most drastic for me. Because my life was about me, and I was miserable.
Right.
And the minute it became about other people, man, I was able to find success and peace,
Right.
happiness, and all the things that eluded me for so long. And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. I
Yeah.
think the relationship should be as close as possible. Obviously, there are certain boundaries you don't want to cross. We're not going to go extensively into those. But women with husbands, you got to be careful in those relationships.
Yeah.
If you have a female subordinate that has a husband, not that you shouldn't be if they're single.
Yeah.
That's different boundaries. But what I'm saying is those are obvious boundaries.
Yeah. I'm
I'm talking about less obvious boundaries. Is that you also probably need to develop a relationship with that husband.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think that that's an important thing to be able to lead them well.
Something I like to think about in those circumstances is if they're single, I like to think, how would I, as a father, want my daughter's boss to treat her?
Sure.
And so I think about that and try to model myself after that. And then on the other side, if they're married, how would I want my wife's boss to treat her?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna cross that boundary.
Sure. Yeah. And most people assume negatively immediately.
Yeah.
And so if you as a husband come home and your wife is like, oh my God, my boss, Jim, he's just the best. You'll love him. Like, my first thoughts are not, awesome, you have a great boss.
Yeah.
My first thoughts are,
Why is he so nice to you?
yeah, what is Jim doing? You know what I mean?
I need to
And so
meet this
you
Jim.
gotta understand that as the leader,
Yeah.
that conversation is happening inside the husband's head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I won't say that it's your responsibility to put that to rest, because I think that that's an overreach, but it would be to your benefit.
Right.
It would be to
It
your
would help
benefit.
you out a lot.
And I think that everybody nowadays kind of has a what's my responsibility mentality. I will do what's my responsibility
And no
nothing more.
Yeah.
Nothing more. And that's why so many people don't have any success.
Yeah.
And, it makes it very, very difficult. And so that's kind of the less obvious boundary when it comes to women. The less obvious boundary when it comes to men is especially men with families.
Mhm.
And I would say almost exclusively men with families, because single men is just a different breed of man.
Yeah,
I'm just be honest.
Yeah, it is.
They're
For
totally separate. But a man with a family has a family, and you do as a boss need to respect that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't make them work overtime. I'm not saying don't give them. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm not saying those things are bad. And a lot of times, the overtime stuff like that is what pays the bills.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I am saying that it does need to be a thought on your mind. And if it's not at least on your mind, you're not doing your due diligence as
Yeah.
a leader.
I can give a good example,
Go for
right? Monday, wife sick, kid sick, right? Both really bad sick, right? And so you go to work and you do all the things that you have to do for the day, right? You get all the things that have to be accomplished today, and if there are optional things that really don't need to get done today that can be pushed off for tomorrow, you need to send them home.
Sure.
You need to send that husband home to his family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, agree. And I think that's just again, not necessarily your responsibility, but it would definitely be to your benefit. And the other thing is, you think about the aid that you've gained in investing in those relationships in that way.
Yeah.
You have somebody that you've really went the extra mile for.
Right.
You've considered in a way you didn't have to.
Yeah.
He sees that.
Definitely.
Now he's more loyal to you as an employer because my next employer is probably not going to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Same with like a wife and her husband. You know, this guy wants his wife to work for you. Right. Because the next guy might be a slob. Right. You know, you just don't know.
Yeah.
And so, loyalty is usually built.
If we could just stop right here for a second with the women subordinates, I will say, as a man, it is your duty. You are responsible for setting boundaries with women.
Yes.
There is no, sometimes I hear men say, like, she came on to me. Okay, get her off of you. Yeah. Hey, who here is in charge? Like, you need to set the. I'm not saying women or men have to be in charge of women. I'm saying you as a man set the boundaries for your physical and emotional connections, right? Like, a woman isn't just gonna get me. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not gonna trip, fall.
At some point, you made a choice.
Right. At some point, there was a decision made, and so I set extremely hard boundaries. Right. If I feel a woman even getting close to those boundaries, I will do something where she'll understand, like, that was too far. Like, I will be rude. I mean, I'm sorry. I have to be rude for that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's intelligent. It's the most intelligent way to do it. I've heard some stand-up comedians actually address that in very humorous ways. Where
was it Norm Macdonald?
I think it was Burt Kreisler.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, just yells, "I don't cheat on my wife." any time that he feels like somebody is. Yeah, and that's hilarious. And what an excellent technique.
Right.
He's like, and I don't even know if they were doing anything, but
but hey, I cut it out.
Not now.
I was in Dollar General the other day on a road trip to officiate that wedding. Yeah. And this girl was like, "Hey, I like your sunglasses." I was like, "Thanks, my wife got them." I don't know what her intentions are, but I'm gonna shut it down.
Classic maneuver. And now I was just saying that loyalty is typically something that is garnered from intentionality and in the things that you did that you didn't have to do.
Right.
Loyalty is just not built from things that have to be done. I've not ever become more loyal of a friend or acquaintance to a person who just was there alongside me because they had to be. I've served alongside countless people in my life, thousands and thousands and thousands. And the ones that did more than they have to are the ones I got close to. Right. The ones that just came and did what they were supposed to do, I don't even know their names. Right. And it's no offense to them. You know, you did what you had to do. I'm not mad at you. Yeah.
Proud of you for doing it.
But I'm also not loyal to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so people want people that are going to go the extra mile for them. Yeah. And so if you express yourself as that type of person, then it's a lot easier to get people to be loyal to you. Have you ever yourself developed any sort of loyalty to a person that didn't invest in you?
No, I have not.
I think that investment process is such a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And so.
Now that we're saying that, something I've noticed is people are very. I don't want to people are sometimes loyal to me, and I've always wondered why people feel that towards me, and now I think it's because I just invest myself in you. Like, I'm gonna invest in you, no matter what. I'm gonna figure out a way to make myself a help to you, and I think that breeds loyalty. I think being helpful to people is like, I want to be around this guy. I like this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's kind of my take on that leadership topic for the day. I think that we covered it well without
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, the leadership topic today was, what should your relationship look like with your subordinates?
Okay.
And
let me ask, because let me ask you, what do you think is Could you describe a relationship you've had with a subordinate?
Like a specific one? Or
Generalities,
Yeah.
right? Because I think people have the wrong idea and don't understand. A lot of people have had bad bosses,
Yeah.
and so just want to clear up.
Yeah, sure. So anytime that I have somebody, do you want to use like old employee, new employee?
Either one.
Well, it's different because one's establishing a relationship and one isn't. So a new employee would kind of also involve the relationship building process,
Right.
which to me is equal parts to communication. By the way,
Right.
I think they're two halves of a whole.
Yeah.
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 And so I guess I'll just try to speak in very, very general terms. Just so the first thing you got to do is you got to get to know the person. It's the absolute first thing you got to do.
Yep.
If you only know them in terms of your work, you've already failed as a boss.
Right.
You don't know them. You don't care about them. This is all in their mind.
Right.
You don't know them. You don't care about them. They're just a number. They're just a body. And as long as they think they're just a number and just a body, then you're not going to get anything excellent from them. You're
Right.
only going to get the bare minimum. So the first thing that I do, and mind you, none of this is to trick them.
Right.
I'm not trying to trick them into being more productive.
I genuinely
I
care.
care.
Yeah.
And so the first thing you got to do is you got to get to know them.
Right.
Ask them if they're married. Where do they live? Where are they from? Ask them a little bit about their story.
Right.
The next thing that you do is you need to bear a little bit of yourself to them. I would do that as early in that process as you can. I'm not saying like first meeting, tell them about the darkest time of your life, but I think that it's important that you show some trust and a little bit of vulnerability.
Right.
Not in any kind of like crazy intimate personal way.
Yeah.
But a little bit of vulnerability is good.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that people need to be checked up on regularly, not when there's problems.
That's something you do a lot better than I do.
Yeah.
Just check on people.
Yeah, and so you can't wait until Steve messes something up and say, "Hey man, how are things going?
Right.
I noticed that your report was late." That's not when you check up on Steve.
Right.
Because Steve knows that he did something wrong and you're in there because he did something wrong. But if
Right.
I was in Steve's office 2 days before, said, "Hey man, just want to check in, how are things going? Is there anything I can do for you?"
Yeah.
Because ultimately, as a leader, and this is where the roles are kind of flipped, as a leader, your role is actually to serve your subordinates. It's not the other way around. Your subordinates are not there to serve you. As a leader, you have very little work to do.
Right.
Now, I get paperwork, logistics, all that kind of stuff that you're responsible for. I understand that. I'm not
Right.
talking about paperwork. Paperwork to me is not work.
Right.
Paperwork is what keeps your company afloat, but it's not work.
Yeah.
It's time consuming.
Yeah.
But it's not work.
Yeah.
The work is done in whatever your business is there to accomplish.
Right.
And as the leader, you do very little of whatever that is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
You're
I'm
not down in the trenches.
Exactly. And so I'm not saying, if your company produces race cars,
Yeah.
the leader is not producing race cars.
You're not putting lug nuts on the top.
Exactly. And so it's one of those things where they are what builds your product.
Right.
And you got to understand that you are there to serve them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how busy you are, how tired you are, how any of that. Dude, this is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
When you became the leader, whether you wanted to or not, this is what you signed up for. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. And I understand that. We're not all built to do that.
Yeah.
I
Let's
think
pause.
go ahead.
I think you just hit something that's like super, super important. People are given leadership roles who do not need them.
Or want them.
Oh yeah, or want them.
Yeah.
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 Dude, I can think of a lot off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Who aren't qualified, who aren't capable, and not everybody is a leader.
Sure.
Like it is what it is. Some of us are really good at doing other stuff, and some of us are good at leading. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that you can learn to be a leader.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone doesn't have potential to lead, but there's so much groundwork that has to be done before you start leading.
Communication.
And relationship building. I'm telling you, those are two halves of the whole when it comes to leadership. Communication, relationship building. The other stuff is far less important if you're good at relationship building and communication.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. Let's say, well, take me for an example. I'm a perfect example of this exact scenario. I'm not that good at planning.
Right.
I'm not that good at planning. I'm fantastic when something goes horribly wrong at fixing it.
Yeah.
I'm fantastic
For
at
sure.
that. That might be my strongest quality.
Yeah.
But as far as initial planning stages, I don't even have an idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, we want to do a car wash.
There you go. All right, get some
All
service.
right, you want to do it right here now? Like, I have no idea. I've never, but my relationship building is excellent.
Yeah.
So I know people who are good at planning.
Yeah.
and my communication is excellent. So I can communicate with them in a way to get this plan made without me, myself, having to be great at planning.
Right.
And so if you can accomplish those two halves of that whole really, really well,
Right.
the other things can be learned gradually. I'm much better at planning today than I was when I started.
Yeah.
Because I've had such strong relationships with great planners, and
Right.
I've watched them do it over and over and over again. So now I have a little bit of a general sense of planning something.
Yeah.
But
I would much rather try to fix something after it's gone wrong than try to do something from the start.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's why I probably got good at it, because I was so bad at planning. Everything always went wrong.
Yeah.
And so but that's the whole deal when it comes to relationship building. You need to check in on people, let them know you care about them before something goes wrong, because they know why you're there. They know why you're there. And if you were there 2 days before just to check in on them and see what it's good, they don't feel so much pressure to tell you that something went sideways.
Right.
Because they know that you care. They know that you're just popping in.
I think overall, if you don't care about your subordinates, you should step out of leadership.
Yes.
You should not be in leadership if you don't care about your subordinates.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And so, if you want to lead, but you're not willing to do all the groundwork of relationship building and communication and learning those things, spending the extra hours, because guess what, buddy? It's a lot of extra hours to lead.
Yeah.
The crown of leadership is not something to be envied.
Yeah.
If you value your time more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because you will have far less.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many calls I take after work.
Oh my God.
I take plenty of calls.
That's one of the hardest things, is having to not answer calls, because it's like, I owe some time to my family. You know what I mean? Like, they need me more than this person needs me right now.
Yeah.
And so that was hard at first.
Yeah.
It was hard at first. And I didn't do it well for a while.
Right.
Because I felt like every call was so
important.
it had to be done now.
Yeah.
And not everything is.
Yep.
Now, for urgent things, if somebody's in a ditch,
Sure.
go get them. Whatever.
I'll answer.
But
I'll send a tow truck.
But you do have to understand that you still have a responsibility to your family. So, and I think that's part of the dichotomy.
Yeah. Well, like this example, I haven't talked to this employee since Wednesday.
Yep.
And Saturday, I'm like, Alexis, or my wife and my child both want to go outside, and we want to sit on the sometimes we go outside and like put blankets down and hang out there. Mm-hmm. And it's like a good time. We don't bring our phones really, and we're not on our phones. We're just focused on each other, and we read Proverbs. And anyways, it's a fun time for us. Mm-hmm. Well, I get a call from this employee who I haven't talked to since Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's been a couple of days. I gotta answer this.
Yeah.
And that cut into the family time, but I thought, like, as the leader, I need to do this. To maintain my leadership integrity.
Yeah. I'll add a step to that as well, because I think that you'll appreciate this, because you were actually working with me at the time. There was a former employee of mine who called me the other day, or asked me to call him. He said he had some free time.
Yeah.
And I told him I wanted to talk to him sometime. I just text him randomly to check in.
Yeah.
He doesn't work for me anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And he'll never work for me again.
Right.
And I just texted him to check in, asked him how he's doing. He asked me to give him a call sometime. I said I'd love to. And then he texted me the next day. I was like, hey, I'm free.
Yeah.
And then I'm headed home to spend time with my family, which I don't have enough of.
Right.
And I called him. I called him. Now, why did I call him?
Right. He doesn't work for you.
And
he never will again.
Because this is who I am.
Right.
This is not a put on.
Yeah.
To lead. It's not a trick. It's
right.
not a show. This is who I am. It has to be who you are.
Right.
You can't force yourself to love people. You can't force yourself to build relationships. You can't force yourself to communicate for very long.
Yeah.
You can start to.
Yeah.
It will not last.
Yeah. You can start to, and even you can learn to be that person.
Yeah.
You can learn that.
Sure. But through the relationship building and the communication with this guy, he was an employee. You know what happened? I loved him.
Yeah.
And his family. And I care about him.
Right.
So when he wanted to talk, I wanted to talk.
Yeah.
It matters to me how he is, how he's doing. Like these are important things to me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing that separates it. It's not for show.
Definitely.
Definitely. Any other thoughts on relationship with subordinates, leadership, anything like that? I love love the awkward pauses before the no's. They're
Thanks.
some of my favorite things. So one of the questions that we get asked a lot, regarding some of the ways that we live, the ways we go about things, stuff like that. This is a question that comes in pretty regular, I'd say. Fun caveat is I'm actually a pastor, and Joe has also been doing ministry for a few years now. And as a biblical man,
Okay.
what should your characteristics be? What are the characteristics of a biblical man?
Yeah.
What are some of your thoughts on what that looks like?
Yeah, I've got three that
Okay.
I think are just most important. You got love, humility, and honor.
Okay.
I think as a biblical man, those are the three most important characteristics for you. Love, because Jesus calls us to love. It's kind of the center of everything I do, right? When I lead, I do it from a place of love. When I have a family, I do it from a place of love. And that means that I care for others. It means I want the best for others. I want them to achieve everything they could achieve, and I want them to be everything they can be, right? And I love them, and I want to support them through that, and I want to build them up, and I want to give them everything I can give them. And so that to me is the most important attribute a biblical man can have. If a man has every other characteristic in the entire world that's good, but doesn't have love, to me it's useless. To me, you are a failure as a person.
That
And
almost sounds scriptural.
huh?
That almost sounds scriptural.
I know, I was really trying not to sound like the Bible. I really was.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned humility and honor.
Yep.
What about humility? Tell me.
So, as a man, you are, if you love others well, and you take care of others, right? You will. Let me go at it from a different way.
Okay.
If you're working out every day and
Yeah.
you are taking care of your fitness, you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of your work, right? If you're working hard, you've now put yourself in probably the top 10% of men in the entire world. If you're doing those simple things, you've now put yourself in the top 10% of men in the entire world. I truly believe that. I believe if you're working out regularly, that you're loving your family well, and that you are working hard at your job, you have now placed yourself in the top 10% of men. And I think that some people, when they do that, they start looking down on other people. And I think that you need to be humble in that you shouldn't think of yourself as better than others just because you're doing those things, right? And so I say the top 10%, and that already is like leveling people. And I think God has created everybody, and everybody is equally valuable. The millionaire that I run into is just as valuable to me as the homeless man who asked me for a couple of dollars the other day.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously I don't treat them exactly the same,
Yeah.
right? Because that would be unreasonable. That wouldn't be loving both of them where they were. But I do believe I'm just as valuable, and they are just as valuable as me. And so that's humility to me. Even though I consider myself physically fit, I'm not going to look at somebody who's fat and say, oh, I'm better than you.
Yeah. I think it's very good. And honor?
Honor to me is when you are put in positions of power over anything, that you do the right thing. And so if you have money, you do the right thing with your money. If you have influence over people, you do the right thing with that influence, right? And so we've talked about this. Influence is a good thing when you use it to better other people.
Yeah.
Influence is a bad thing when you use it for personal gain.
Sure.
And I believe that falls under honor.
Yeah.
I believe if I have money and I just spend my money on things I want a new shoes, I want a new watch, I want things, and that's what I spend all my money on. That's not honorable to me. To me, honorable is taking care of other people, with my money and buying gifts for other people and things. And then you've got your time. You are powerful over your time. And as you continue to walk it out, manhood, you will be put in more and more positions of power. Like, that's just a natural order of the world. The strong man will be powerful.
Yeah.
And so you have to honor in every one of those positions. You have to have honor.
Yeah.
3 most important. What about you? What do you think are the characteristics of a biblical man?
Yeah, I thought it would be a shorter list, but there were some other things that I just really thought were important to tag on that were good. One, integrity. Simple definition I'm going to use is your words and your actions need a match. No
That's
more,
good.
no less than that. If you say let your yes be yes and your no no.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You don't have to make it more complicated.
Right.
You know? But I think it is something that is. I don't want to say lost, but it's not going the right direction. People,
Yeah.
I'm finding people have less and less integrity nowadays.
Sure.
Everybody's out to pull the wool over somebody's eyes and then do something tricky. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all our reality shows are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Hot or not.
Yeah, let me not have any integrity.
Yeah.
Let me say I'm gonna do this and then backstab you.
What's my favorite one that we watched? We used to watch it.
I don't know. We'll have to visit that another day because I like shows like that.
Yeah.
But that's even what we find entertaining is as people,
The trickery.
Yeah, people lacking integrity.
Yeah.
Like this is funny.
Yeah.
And
Drama.
I mean, well, that's what's funny to me about it.
Yeah.
Because to me, when I watch those shows, they're not interesting.
Yeah.
They're comical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like how
It's almost
could
appalling.
how could a person
Do
have
this?
such little integrity? Sometimes when we go to sleep at night, I'll turn on
Peaky Blinders.
like Survivor,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a show of no integrity.
Right.
It's a show of, hey man, look, I'm not gonna vote for you.
Yeah.
And then like cameras on, and it's like, yeah man, I voted for Steve.
Got him.
Bro, yeah, take that, Steve. I never liked you. It's like, my goodness,
Yeah.
what a horrible. I would not do well on one of those shows.
I wouldn't either.
Because I would not lie.
Right.
Which is hilarious because you have seen me win like board
Oh my
games
gosh,
and
Mafia?
things like that. Yeah, I win games like that because I will not be dishonest.
Yeah.
Risk is probably my favorite one. I love playing Risk, and a lot of times when we're talking and because we play regular Risk, but we have some house rules just to kind of
Speed it up.
yeah, just to kind of make it interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can do some negotiating and stuff, and like you just can't meet in secret. Everything's got to be done out loud in
Public.
front of everybody. And so, like, if you're about to team up on Joe, like you got to talk about it in front of Joe.
Right. That's funny.
And that's one of the things that people have come to know is that out of the hundreds of games of Risk that we've played together, they know I will not lie. I have yet to do it, and I won't do it.
Yeah.
And so
I can even remember playing Mafia and screaming at everybody that Andrew was the Mafia, and nobody would believe me.
Yeah.
Nobody would.
It's hilarious, but integrity is just a huge thing. The next thing I would say is expectancy. If you're living life as a biblical man with no expectation that God is moving, that God is going to do anything, that you aren't headed to a better place, that He hasn't accomplished something in you already. If you have no expectancy of any of these things, you can still be a good man, but I don't know that you can be a biblical one.
Yeah.
And that's, mind you, this is characteristic of a biblical man, not a good man. Expectancy is a must-have.
Right.
As a biblical man.
Dude, that's so crazy. So that basically is hope, right?
Sure.
In a sense.
Yeah.
And do you know one of the neurologists did a study where they had a bunch of different levers, right? And they were all connected to different parts of your mind, and you could flip the levers. And the number one lever that people flipped was hope. Looking forward to something. That's the lever they flipped the most. And I thought that was really interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
Because it's not actually receiving something. They have a lever for receiving something good.
Yeah.
They didn't flip that
But
lever.
it stalemates if you keep hitting it.
Yeah.
The dopamine rush from hitting something continuously, your dopamine response actually decreases over
Right.
time.
Right.
But they did another study with rats where they did the same thing, where there was a button that they could push and it would give them sugar water, which would give them a dopamine rush.
Right.
And the rats that had the button that every time they pushed it, it would come out, eventually ignored it altogether. The ones that had it every 5 pushes, it would come out, eventually also bored of it. But the ones that was completely random and they had no idea when it was going to happen,
They still hit
could
it.
not stop.
Yeah.
Could not stop.
That's crazy.
Which has a lot to do with our
Casinos.
gambling addiction, things
Yeah,
like
slot
that as well.
machines.
Yeah. But yeah, man, expect.
What is that? What is the word for that? There's a word for that. It's like unexpected rewards, but it's way cooler.
Oh yeah, it's like random intermittent reward.
Yeah, random intermittent.
Yeah.
It's how you should work out, apparently.
Yeah.
You should randomly reward yourself. Apparently, I don't know.
I have chocolate milk every time. It's not random,
Dude.
It's just delicious.
I tried to randomly intermittent reward myself yesterday after doing an ice bath. And so I got like this I like dark chocolate. I like it when it's not sweet. So I got 90% dark chocolate.
Very dark.
It is disgusting.
I like it.
You like 90%? Dude, it's not sweet.
I know.
It's tart.
I know.
Oh, well, I'll give it to you. Because
Yeah,
I don't want it.
I'll tell you. Courtney bought me some not too long ago. I love
It
dark
is
chocolate.
disgusting.
Yeah. It gets dark, man. It gets dark.
It's dark.
Integrity, expectancy, transparency. Transparency is huge. Now, there is a level of transparency that's good. There's a level of transparency that's bad. Transparency we love is good. You understand?
Right.
To correct someone lovingly with the intention to better them is good. Transparency to cut them, not good.
Yeah.
There's a time to say what you feel about something. There's a time not to.
Would you say that sometimes when you love people, you cut them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the intention can't be the cut.
Right.
You know what I mean? You might have to cut them to heal them.
Right.
But the intention can't be that I want to cut them. It's got to be that I want to heal them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's very different. And
Yeah.
so, and then there's times for transparency. That's what I was saying. It's like the timing of your transparency matters.
Right.
Like if you mess up in the middle of a room full of other people that we love and respect, and I'm like, Joe, that was really stupid. I don't even know why you thought that was a good idea. That was the dumbest thing you could have done.
Like when I threw that Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Quick story. Joe in one office meeting, while he works for me, mind you, in an office of other people that work for me, Joe throws a full cup with no lid, a full cup of Dr. Pepper, Chick-fil-A cup, I think it was.
Yeah, probably.
At me.
Yeah, that somebody else bought.
Yeah.
For somebody else.
Yeah, so he throws it across maybe, 4-foot desk?
Yeah, something like
it was a long desk, but it was 4 foot wide. So he throws it over the width of the desk at me. Not like a baseball throw.
Right,
Not
but like a
baseball
toss.
throw. Yeah, like a toss where he intended for all of the liquid to stay in the cup.
Right.
But it's obviously impossible because this is a full to the brim Dr. Pepper with no lid. And he throws it, and I catch it.
Right.
And I kept probably 80% of the liquid in this cup.
Yeah.
But 20% of it got on the other employees. And I was not thrilled with Joe's decision in this moment.
Hilarious.
And not because I was like mad at Joe even. It wasn't an anger thing. It was just and it wasn't anything really to do with me and him.
Yeah.
It had to do with I knew in that moment how the other employees were viewing Joe. And that was a cohesiveness that's very hard to build.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that he made a decision to hurt that cohesiveness. I didn't want people to view Joe as someone who didn't care about them. And in that moment, it came across that way to me.
Yeah.
And I was fearful that it did to them too. But I didn't jump on him in that room.
Right.
That we had a conversation about it later, a good conversation that was productive, and but that's just his humor, and that a lot of times is people's caveat for doing dumb things. This is just who I am. So yeah, but who you are in certain situations, can't
Shouldn't
just do whatever you want. You know, I like to be violent.
Right.
I can't go to the bank and mug the tellers and take money. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like there's a time to be who I am.
Yeah.
And there's a time to be what I need to be in that moment. And so yeah, that was that was an interesting moment.
But you didn't yell at me in front of everybody.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I did not.
Even though you wanted to. I mean, not wanted to yell at me, but you wanted to correct.
I wanted to correct you as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
That's accurate.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if today I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I think you got to have the wild card.
You are definitely that. You are definitely the wild card for sure. Ferocity. I think ferocity is a characteristic of a biblical man.
Okay.
I think within you needs to be the capability to be fierce.
Okay.
In everything you do.
Yeah.
Love fiercely, protect fiercely, pursue fiercely.
I love it.
I think that there's too much timid in the idea of biblical men today.
Definitely.
Because humility is such a great quality, but humility is not timidity.
Right.
They're not the
100%.
same. They're not the
Yeah,
same.
for sure.
And as long as we view them the same, we're failing.
Yeah.
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 And so ferocity to me is huge.
Do you think ferocity? Can we stop here for a sec?
Sure.
I think ferocity is the opposite, antithesis of efficacy.
Sure.
Is that what you're saying? Like that?
Yeah. You could qualify it that way. I wouldn't qualify it that way. I wouldn't say you nailed it 100%.
Sure.
But it's close.
Yeah.
It's close. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be so passive. You
Right.
know, it's a passive traits and the handling everything with the gloves.
Right.
And soft is not. I just don't find it biblical.
You
I
have
just
to be
don't.
dangerous to be good.
I agree.
Is what I've heard.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Peterson goes in this extensively. If
Yeah.
you've never heard that man, get on YouTube, look it up.
Oh, dude,
You know,
he's
look
great.
it up. It is worth your time
Yeah.
to listen to Jordan Peterson talk about dangerous men.
Yep. And you should be dangerous I agree 100%.
Yeah. Oh,
You
he
should
knows
be
it.
fierce.
He nails it.
You know, you should be fierce.
Yeah. Tenacity, your pursuing of things just relentlessly, you know, until they're accomplished. I think that is extremely biblical. Teachability. To me, the most valuable quality you can find in a person. It is the single most sought after quality when I am looking for people to add to my circle.
Yeah.
It's not anything else but teachability. If I can teach you, if you're willing to learn,
Yeah.
I can get you where you want to go, wherever it is you want to go.
Yeah.
It is the most desirable quality to me.
That's the hardest one for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, you know, the more you learn, the more you think you know, the less you think you need to be taught.
Yeah.
You know, and then if you spent, 18, 20, 50 years learning one way,
Right.
well, somebody else trying to tell you a different way,
Yeah.
it's hard to do. Yeah, teachability, man, is the pinnacle.
I've actually found it to be the opposite for me. The more I've learned, the more I know, and the more I realize I need to know more. And so, I mean, it's like the old thing when I was 18, my parents were idiots. When I was 20, I started realizing they kind of knew something, and by 25, I knew they were geniuses.
Yeah.
You know, like
Sure.
the more I've learned and the more I've grown, the more I'm teachable.
Yeah. I think that what you just said there was an appropriate correction, because I think that my statement's only true if you've learned the wrong things.
Ah.
Yeah.
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 Sure.
But if you've learned the correct things, then yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
You become more teachable.
Right.
As you're learning the correct principles and tenets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But should you learn the wrong things,
Right.
then you become harder to teach.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so teachability, man, extremely sought after for me, and then humility, which is one that you hit on. So I'm not gonna dive back into it a whole lot, but I will say this: do not lack confidence as a man. The world is telling you that there's something wrong with being confident, and they will call you arrogant, and they will call you prideful because you simply have confidence. Do not buy into the lie. You are allowed to be confident in what you're doing, and what you say, and what you believe. Be confident. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Now, if they've given you evidence of your,
Lack.
Sure. Then you need to take that in stride, and you need to adjust. You can't
Right.
still stand on the rock and scream that you've made it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's arrogance.
Yeah.
But please be confident.
Right.
Please be confident. You cannot be biblical if you're not confident. If you're not confident in what he's done,
Yeah.
what he's done in you, it's impossible for you to be biblical. And so one last little piece I just want to hit real quick, because our time's drawn to a close, is health an obligation, or is health a choice?
Yeah. What do you think?
I would say it's an obligation.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely obligated. I think that in my mind, I would say that there's four parties that you're obligated to. First, you're obligated to God.
Yeah.
Right? If you believe in God, and you believe that He created you, then you have an obligation to take care of that which He gave you.
Right.
The most important being in all of creation gave you something.
Yeah.
Take care of it.
Right.
Second obligation is to your family.
Yep.
Right? You need to take care of yourself, not just for the now, but for longevity's sake.
You know what I mean? I don't want to just be a good father to my daughter right now. I do want to be a good father to my daughter, but I'd also like to be a good father to her when she's 50.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so for longevity's sake, I owe it to my family. I want to be a good husband.
Yep.
For as long as I can be one.
Yeah.
You know? And I owe it to my wife and to my children. And that's not a burden, by the way.
Right.
It's not, oh my God, I got to go to the gym because heaven forbid I die and, you know, Courtney has to live without me.
Right.
Like, it's not a burden.
Yeah.
I want to be these things for my family.
Right.
The third party is yourself. You owe it to yourself to experience the best version of yourself that you can.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Like what a regret it would be for you to die and never know what it was like to be at your pinnacle.
Yeah.
You know? And here's
to
the
know
thing.
what your body's capable of.
Sure, and you may never get there, but you got close, maybe.
Right.
You know, you may
further.
Yeah, you could get close, get as far as you can.
Yeah.
But there are so many people that I just see spend their lives, and it's like, man, you don't even know the potential that you had.
Right.
And the other thing is, and we won't. I think maybe another episode we'll dive off into this a little bit, but you're regarded differently.
Oh, dude.
When you take care of yourself.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like someone who takes care of themselves. I'm not talking about like big jack bodybuilders. I'm just talking about someone who takes care of themselves.
Right.
As compared to someone who very
Doesn't.
obviously doesn't.
Right.
Those people have different abilities to speak into my life as strangers.
Yep.
Someone who takes care of themselves, it's natural.
Right.
That I'm going to have a tendency to believe what they tell me more
Right.
than the person who doesn't.
Yeah.
Because this person doesn't seem to value even their own health.
Right.
And so if you don't value your own health, why
Yeah.
would I believe that you would just value whatever you're trying to tell me?
Right.
You know?
A lot, and I've had a lot of pushback on that because I'm very open about that. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, I don't listen to you. And
Sure.
people are like, you don't love those people. I love them. I love them a lot. I would do anything for those people. However, I'm not going to allow them to influence me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be influenced by that. I want to be healthy, you know, and a lot of my life is built on my health and my family's health and my ability to work with my hands. You know, that's what pays my bills right now is my ability to work with my hands. And
Sure.
so I'm not going to listen to somebody who can't.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Makes total sense to me.
But I've gotten a lot of pushback on that one.
Yeah, and
Almost as much as you have with feelings.
yeah, and I understand the pushback. I don't agree with it.
Sure.
I understand where it's coming from.
I do too.
You know?
Yeah, they want me to love everybody, and I do.
Yeah. And so it's such a easy thing to misinterpret. You know, this lack of love for not valuing the opinion of a person. And really, it's more on general topics. It's not you know, like if they're telling me they need something, I'm not like, you don't really need anything because you don't.
Right.
It's not like that.
Right.
You know, we're talking about.
Like when they're telling me how I should eat.
Yeah,
You know,
or how you should live, or
Yeah.
you know how you should be as a husband,
Right. Or
It's
what
like,
time
it's
I
just
need to
hard
stay.
for me to believe that I should follow your advice as a husband,
Right.
when it doesn't seem to me that you value yourself or your family because you're not taking care of yourself to be there for them.
Right.
And so, I get that that's a hot button issue for a lot of people. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
I want to see you be your absolute best self.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, hey, look, I'm happy just the way I am. It's like, I believe that you're happy.
Right.
I believe that you're happy. I just also believe that you can be happy for longer.
Yep.
You can be happy with less pain. You can be happy with less illness.
Right.
You can be happier even, possibly.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that to me is more caring.
Right.
Not less, because I want to see you reach a greater point of being. You know?
And why are we so concerned about specific people's happiness?
Yeah.
You know, that also is another thing for me.
Yeah.
Not so now.
Another episode.
Yeah.
I like where that's going. The fourth obligation is simple. It's society. You know, I think you probably have even a better understanding of that than I do. But would you agree you have an obligation to society?
Yeah, you know, your obligation to society starts because a fit person and somebody who's taking care of themselves is less likely to need doctors. It's less likely to need to be a burden on our medical infrastructure. Sure. Somebody who is healthy and in shape can produce more for our society. You know, there's plenty of studies out there that show that you're more focused, you have a better brain, you know, you're neurologically more healthy, I think would be the scientific way. And so if you combine all of those things, we can look at successful CEOs, and most of them work out, right? Most, you know, Mark Zuckerberg is a big fitness guy. He thinks you should be doing stuff with your body. This is a guy, mind you, who built one of the most successful social media platforms in the entire world before social media was big. You know, he hit Facebook, like, let's just be honest, kind of made pathways for social media, and that is what most people spend their time doing instead of working out. And the guy who created those things
It's telling you to get out and do something.
is telling you to get out and do something, you know. And so you got that, you know, that is your obligation to society, in that you need to not be a burden and you need to be productive. That is kind of the basis of society.
So you agree it's an obligation?
I agree that there is an obligation. Yep. Not that you have to choose to do it. I believe that there's a choice to honor your obligation. You can choose to dishonor your obligations.
Sweet. I agree. Well, hey, look, man, this is a fantastic talk. I'm looking forward to the next one. It's going to be good.
I'll shout out our sponsors. We've got
we actually have got a partnership coming up with X Marshall. It's a company that we get all of our rash guards and stuff from when we do our MMA training and stuff like that. I just want to give a shout out to them. I'll share some of the products and stuff like that we have so far, man. Super comfortable rash guards. I'm not just saying that. Like,
I actually like their stuff too.
It's like wearing like I don't even know how to describe. It's like wearing a Tempur-Pedic.
The inside of it of the rash guards are different than the
They're
outside.
different than anything I've ever had. I'm gonna be honest. It's totally different.
And they've got really funny ones. That hillbilly rash guard I got.
They're good, man. And not sponsors, but people just want to give shout outs to. Is people that have poured into our lives. We want to give a shout out to. One, Jocko Willink, Echelon Front, Jocko Podcast, all of the things he's doing, man. Get on board with that. Tim Kennedy, I know he's got the Apogee Cedar Park School Sheepdog Response. Check out what he's going on. John Lovell
would love to start a new Apogee school around Louisiana.
No joke. That would be killer.
Wouldn't mind helping. I'll quit my job.
John Lovell, Warrior Poet Society. Good, godly man. Leading people well, man. Love his content. Love everything he does. And his buddy Craig, who does the shipwork stuff, man. Fantastic. And Goggins, anything Goggins is doing. Don't know what he's doing, but he's doing it. And just
we support him.
We support him. And he does have a new book coming out.
Really?
The 6th, I think, of December.
I heard him talk about that.
And so, man, you probably want to get on board with that. If you've not ever listened to Goggins or anything like that, mind you, his language is completely unfiltered. So now he does have a clean version of his books in print. So if language
cursing isn't your thing.
If language is something that is just like extremely offensive to you, get the clean versions of his book. He's still worth listening to. And so I
would like to add 2 to that if I could. I would go Jordan Peterson. Anything by Jordan Peterson, he's phenomenal. I love him. Someone else I've recently found and that I really enjoy is Andrew Huberman. Dr. Andrew Huberman. Actually, Jordan Peterson and Andrew Huberman have a podcast together. It's a fantastic podcast.
Excellent. Well, other than that, man, this has been Andrew and Joe with Men in Masculinity. We look forward to talking to you again.